Greetings, gentlemen and ladies, I'm the Crypto Game Snob, and in today's video, I'm just going to share my humble opinion on how to quote-unquote fix armor. And in a nutshell, don't fix armor. Armor's actually pretty, pretty cool. At least it was kind of cool, then it got a little bit nerfed. It's still got potential to be cool within certain deck meta. But yeah, a lot of the overpowered cards, Guild Enforcer for example, was overpowered. Every deck had Guild Enforcer. That doesn't make sense. It's still a good card at 3/5 actually with 1 armor. You still see this card get a lot of play, so that makes sense, right? Actually, we had a Reddit user going by the name of Asmir Dezopa, anyway, who put together a nice list of what it was here are the cards with armor and their win rates. Basically, kind of a breakdown of all the different cards with armor and the actual percentage of win rates when they're used in decks. We have 4 cards that are actually in the positive win rate. We have Polyhymnia, obviously, Aspect of Pangolin, which is still good despite the nerf from 2 armor to 3. Now, I never thought that Giant Pangolin was really that overpowered. Like, you dropped him with 6/3 and 2 armor, and he'd jump in there and he'd blitz something, and then usually he'd get taken out the next round. It's not that hard to do 5 points of damage to a creature in a single burst by mana 6. I didn't think this was overpowered. I think it was cooler before when it had higher armor. It kind of made it stand out a little bit, but the functionality and the utility to me feels pretty much the same between armor 1 and armor 2. Like, I really don't notice much difference. Polyhymnia, on the other hand, is one of the probably most broken cards in the game right now. Copperpitch was saying in particular, and I agree with this sentiment entirely. Polyhymnia has perhaps made all other 9-drops obsolete. So in other words, why put a mana 9 Dionysus into your deck when you could drop a Polyhymnia? Although Dionysus is super hot, I really like Dionysus. Basically, it makes a lot of 9-drops like Echophon kind of second ring, second fiddle. Polyhymnia just drops on the board, and how do you deal with that? Frontline, protected, ward, and it gets ward at the end of each turn. So how do you deal with that? That's incredibly difficult. If there was a card that might need some armor nerfing, and that is where a lot of Polyhymnia's problems come from, is that 4 points of armor and 12 points of health, not to mention protected and ward each round. If you want to fix armor, you're gonna have to take some of that off of Polyhymnia. Maybe 2 armor might be a little bit better. Maybe, shit man, this would still be a good card at 1 armor. It might not, it might be more in line with some of the other 9-drops. Maybe 2 armor, right? I wouldn't want to nerf it too much because it is a super cool card. That's, and once you get to 9-drop, you have crazy things, right? Like Hippocrates Monster, right, that can drop down with ward and 60 70 health, or 60 strength 70 health. Like, you have some crazy things at 9-drop, and I like those crazy 9-drops. Like, that's kind of the point of getting to 9, is having some crazy drops. But yeah, it does feel like Poly is a stretch above the rest in terms of it being a neutral card. Any god can use it. Yeah, and armor and blah blah blah. Anyway, blah blah blah. So we have Polyhymnia, we have Cadmos, son of Lysander, and we also have the Armor Lurker, which is, yeah, I mean, a good card, but again, it doesn't feel to me like it's overpowered, right? Like, I play against this a lot, I'm able to clear it. It's a good card, but, at 2 mana, you have 3/1, it gets 1 hit, pretty much guaranteed, and probably survives it, right? But, then by the same token, you have some nice nature cards like Black Jag, which is a 3/3 with 1 regen, and Underbrush Boar, for example, which is just a blitzy attack. I mean, there's lots of good cards at 2 mana. I don't think this is too overpowered. It's powerful, but it's not too overpowered. Here's my humble opinion on fixing armor. My humble opinion on fixing armor is don't fix armor. Armor is already cool. Armor's already like an interesting meta. Here's where armor can get ridiculous. Okay, if you want to know where armor can get ridiculous, here's where it can get ridiculous. Aspect of Pangolin. I love this card. Aspect of Pangolin. You combine that with a spiny porcupine, right? Who already has armor 4. Combine that with a spiny porcupine, you drop something like a swelling boon, You drop something like a Swelling Boon on this card, on these cards, and they start to grow up into these, oh, I don't know, 15 armor 7, juggernauts with potentially overkill. So I've done some decks like this, and it can get crazy. But the thing is, if you're doing decks like this, most of your cards are buff spells, and you're relying on all of those buff spells to arrive at your win condition, right? And if you can achieve all that, you'll get to your win condition, right? And that's kind of the meta for all decks, right? Like if Tempo Magic can get its Pillar of Storms, can stack up some playwrights and basically get that burst damage figured out, that's its win condition, right? Like if Board Wipe Death can last to the end game and clear the board and keep everything off, that's its win condition, right? Like there's if Deck Steal Deception can or let's say Order Light can keep your creatures locked down with order and kind of do it, that's its win condition. If sort of sleep Deception can keep your board asleep, that's its win condition. Like all of these mechanics have their win conditions, and it's all about lining up the right cards at the right times and surviving until you get there, and they don't always line up. Armor's not always a guaranteed win, and in fact it's rarely a guaranteed win. In fact, with the current state of it, it's barely even that much better than just a bigger buffer card, right? So if you get armor, something with armor at 5 mana, here we go, Phalanx Lieutenant, which was recently buffed up. Here we go, which was recently buffed up to a 5/3 with 1 armor. So instead of something like what would be good, instead of what was that? I forget. Totally drawing a blank. Anyway, it's a neutral Aether card with 5/6, right? That's a neutral card for any god to use. Instead of 5/6 at 5 mana, you're going for 5/3 with 1 armor. I don't even think that's better. I would probably, opt on what is it? What is it even called? It's not Helion. Yeah, it is Helion Battlesworn at 5 mana for 5/6, right? Like what's better? 5/6 or 5/3 with 1 armor? Probably 5/6. Probably 5/6 is better, because 5/3 gets taken out with a single 4 damage hit, right? I don't know. I don't think armor is overpowered, not by any stretch of the imagination. If anything, it's kind of feels a little underpowered these days, just because I feel like I say, there are a few metas. Like I say, Aspect of Pangolin, right? You start buffing your creatures with +3 armor onto creatures that already have decent health. You add something like Moonlight Charm on top of that, so your creature's already big and strong, gets armor. Then you can get armor that spirals out of control, gets super crazy. But then, hey, that's your win condition. You need to get a lot of things lining up in order to get that win condition. Is that bad? Is that OP? No. No more so than any other of the crazy kind of quote-unquote OP deck combos that can go off when all things go right. But that's the point of building interesting decks, right? Is that you're hoping that you will get your win condition. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Armor doesn't guarantee a win, just like any other deck configuration doesn't guarantee a win. There are certainly better decks than others in the meta. I think, Control War is popular right now, Deadly Control War, I don't know. But the point is, I think if anything, armor got a little too weak. I would like to see it kind of buffed up a bit. I'd like to see Pangolin get his 2 armor back, at least, and maybe some of these other cards reworked a little bit, right? Like, I don't know, maybe Phalanx Lieutenant gets 2 points of armor, and maybe gets a 3 attack, or something like that. I don't know. There's some ways to work around through this. Maybe Labyrinth Guard. Labyrinth Guard is just very powerful, and he needs to have that 1 point of armor to compensate for his inability to attack, right? Like, that's very powerful. 4/8 with 1 armor is very powerful, but he can't attack, right? So, there's some give and take, quid pro quo or whatever, nuancy, etc., etc. I think armor actually works pretty good. It still works good. It's not too nerfed yet. It's not so nerfed that it's useless. I do think it, like I say, got nerfed kind of a lot all around, because I think the devs found it overpowered in some cases, and that is still true in some cases. Like I say, buff nature, you can see some crazy stuff, but then again, that's the win condition. It requires half a dozen good cards to go off, give or take, you know, to get to that win condition. And every deck has its win condition that requires a certain number of good cards to go off to get there. Let's say Corpse Explosion Death, right? For example. Anyway, those are my 2 cents. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. How are we doing with armor? Too OP? Not OP enough? Right about right? What do you think?